I'm Guybrush, ghost-busting stud, and this is the Rubber Chicken with a podcast in the middle, the podcast all about the Monkey Island series of adventure games. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the recent interviews with Ron Gilbert and Dave Grossman, and the revelations about Return to Monkey Island contained therein. So there are a couple of new interviews out with Ron Gilbert and Dave Grossman, part of the original 2 of 3 writers and designers of The Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge, who are coming back in that role after 30 plus years to return to Monkey Island. They've recently been interviewed for Adventure Gamers and for The Verge, and in doing so gave some new information about Return to Monkey Island, the new installment, which we wanted to talk about today. I think there's probably going to be an increasing level of little bits and pieces teased out over the next however many months it's going to be until the release of the game, but we thought that let's just cash in and talk about what's come out so far and give our half-informed thoughts on what's been going on.
Yeah, this wasn't even what we were going to talk about right now, but it came out, so we decided to change the plan. So, the Verge and Adventure Gamers have written this stuff, and it's kind of dealing with similar points.
There's a lot of overlap.
Yeah. The first of which I wanted to point out was about the story. We have heard that apparently the game starts at the carnival.
Yeah, Ron Gilbert said back in 2013 that the game was going to start at the carnival where Monkey Island 2 left off. My assumption was going to be that that wouldn't happen with this new game, but Ron Gilbert has said that, in fact, it is. But there are going to be some weird twists and turns, were the words that he used, I believe, to lead from that ending into the new game. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, and this is kind of an inescapable thing, Twin Peaks, The Return.
Yeah.
Monkey Island is kind of contemporary with Twin Peaks, the early games. And we had The Return a few years ago of Twin Peaks, 25 years after the original run. And that dealt with the character Agent Cooper going to a kind of a cursed place, the Black Lodge, and being stuck there for a long time. And I feel like it's inescapable, excuse the pun, that this is going to deal with that kind of thing the same way.
Yeah.
I think Guybrush is going to have been trapped in this carnival and somehow is going to find his way out in some weird way.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the game is going to start off, like Ron said, immediately after the end of Monkey Island 2? Because he said 2 minutes later in a carnival. Or do you think there's going to be a 30-year time gap between the end of Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge and now, a bit like 25 years past between the end of Twin Peaks Season 2 and the start of Twin Peaks Season 3, which was great, by the way.
Yeah, and it's great that that was actually set up in Twin Peaks as being a 25-year gap.
Yeah, very convenient.
I'm thinking that... So they've also mentioned in this article about the continuity of what we labelled continuation monkey, the curse and escape, etc., as kind of also being part of the canon while possibly not being completely dealt with. So I'm wondering if... Is all of this curse and escape stuff like something a part of the fever dream?
Yeah.
Has all this time passed and Guybrush has been experiencing all these things, and and the passage of time has gone, and now he's finally finding his way out? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, Dave Grossman said, trying to assign specific numbers to the stories will become hard at some point. Ron Gilbert said it's amorphous, that it's undefinable in a lot of ways, which is kind of what I was hoping for. I think this game will sort of say it doesn't matter what happened.
Right. They also talk about like whether is this like a pirate game? Is this a pirate adventure game? It says this is a game with pirates in it. So I'm wondering if it's kind of going to be this thing where, like with the canon as well, and they mentioned it in the article that things like curse and escape don't actually sync up with what they do.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Curse actually contradicts elements of revenge. Escape contradicts curse. So.
Yeah. So I wonder if are they even going to use that idea?
Dave Grossman said this idea of canon as some really rigid thing came out with, as he pointed out, probably with comic books or something like that. I think it may have started with serialized fiction. I think the term was applied to Sherlock Holmes stories back in the 19th century as well. This idea that people, when this kind of fiction started to exist, people wanted really hard connections between stories, but traditionally with old myths and legends, as he said, they contradicted each other all the time. And I 100% agree that not only should Monkey Island have the room to do that if it tells a good story, as Ron and Dave have said, but further to the point, I actually think it's more in keeping, especially with the ending of Monkey Island 2, if there is no rigid sense of quote-unquote canon, because there is no way to explain everything at the end of Monkey Island 2, as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's intentional. So to think that there's going to be some grand scheme by which all these things fit together, not only is that not realistic, it's also almost against the point. It would almost fly in the face of what's so interesting about that game and maybe the series as a whole.
Yeah, and just to cite something like David Lynch again, think about the end of Monkey Island 2 when we see Guybrush appears back on the street in Melee.
Yeah.
The Shine Top Alley, and he sees the circus poster. And looking at the David Lynch film like Lost Highway, it's like the story has no beginning or end. And I think about things like, does the Secret of Monkey Island happen within the confines of Monkey Island 2?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the secret included in this idea that you can't give these sequels numbers?
Yeah, and that it's silly to try to force some kind of rigid linearity upon these stories. I think that's even implicit in Monkey Island 2 itself. The exact words that Guybrush uses when he emerges into the street on Melee Island is, "This is hauntingly familiar," which suggests that it's implicit, and it was even back in 1990-91 when they were developing the game, that there was something uncanny and incomprehensible about the experience. That it almost as if Guybrush himself didn't remember where he was or didn't recognize the place that he was in when he comes out of that lift, or elevator if you prefer, on the streets of Melee Island when he was underneath Dinky Island moments beforehand. So I think, really, I would much rather a sense of lack of clarity about these things, because I feel like that's exactly what I want from a sequel to Monkey Island 2 made by the same guys.
That would be the best outcome for this sequel.
Yeah.
When I think about things like not getting bogged down in continuity as well, I always like to cite the Evil Dead series of films.
Yep.
Sam Raimi made 3 films that are all effectually sequels, but none of which actually play into the end of the previous film.
Yeah, and to refer to what you said before, Evil Dead 1 is contained within Evil Dead 2 as well.
They're also delightfully weird. Army of Darkness doesn't. Yeah. It continues on from Evil Dead 2, but it just completely
contradicts
resets.
it. Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping. And if they can pull that off for this game, I'm going to be very impressed. And this has actually made me more excited about return than I
me
previously
too.
was. I was
Yeah,
excited, but this seems like some thought has actually been put into this, and this might actually come off as really interesting.
I note that Gilbert and Grossman said that they'd actually talked about what they wanted the game to say. So there's some element of thought has been put in there, and I think the fact that they've actually considered this is really a really encouraging sign.
Carla, make the bad man stop! He's come to take us back to Monkey Island!
Well, that brings me along to talking about Dave Grossman's involvement with the game. I think Grossman is often kind of the forgotten of the three developers for Secret.
Yeah, I think he's sometimes people, because Ron Gilbert obviously is the creator and Tim Schafer went on to make a number of other successful games and run Double Fine, people have not viewed Dave Grossman's role in as much detail.
But he was a writer and contributor to both of those games, and he's also much more involved in this game than he was apparently in Tales. So Grossman was involved with Tales, or so we thought, but I didn't really know to what extent until these publications, when apparently he was involved in some meetings and guided some puzzle design and poked holes in people's ideas and things.
Yeah, it sounded like almost it was more a project management role than it was. He wasn't involved in the writing or the programming in any significant way, as far as we can tell.
But now he's actually involved in writing, and I assume writing dialogue and designing puzzles, working really closely with Ron. And I'm really glad that he's involved in the kind of press junket that's begun with Ron. It's not just Ron doing all this stuff. And Ron's commented that he thinks that Grossman's a great writer and a better writer than him.
And it sounds like Dave Grossman's been doing a lot of the dialogue writing, probably the majority of it by the sounds of things.
Yeah, and I find that really hopeful. I think that's hopefully going to be a massive positive for this game. That Grossman's involved at such a level.
Yeah.
I don't suppose it's a LucasArts game.
No.
Another thing we wanted to talk about was they mentioned the control scheme of the game. It's not going to just have a verb interface down the bottom of the screen, verb and inventory like a traditional LucasArts adventure game would, or like Thimbleweed Park did. It's going to be more streamlined than that.
Yeah, and apparently it's built off what Ron did for the Dolores game. Did you play the Dolores game?
I have played the Dolores game, and that was a very streamlined system. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and apparently they're hoping it'll work with consoles and with PC.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing I never get too concerned about, but they seemed kind of excited about the breakthrough they've made in the controls system.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that there have been a whole variety of different control systems for adventure games that have been developed over the last 20 plus years, and there have been better and worse ones. Honestly, I think the coin interface used in Curse of Monkey Island and Full Throttle was one of the better ones.
Agreed, yeah. I've recently been replaying Escape.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not aged well, and there are a lot of points where you get stuck. That was just an aside because I've been playing that. It's on my mind.
Well, I think in the remaster of Grim Fandango, which neither of us have played, Double Fine implemented a point-and-click system into the controls to get around the traditional three-dimensional movement and interaction system which that game originally used.
Yeah, that's cool. I think you and I often discuss, because we're such Monkey Island nerds, about which version of the game we're playing. Are we playing the EGA version of Secret or the Mac version of LeChuck's Revenge?
Yeah.
I think I've been emulating Grim Fandango, and I've been emulating Escape through residual VM, so I'm very ingrained in playing kind of the original releases of these things.
Yeah, and we have our preferences. I mean, for me, EGA, Secret of Monkey Island, and the, I guess, PC version of Monkey Island 2, but I've also played the FM Towns version of Monkey Island 2, and we were talking before, Amiga version's a little different. I think it'll be interesting to see how this one is released, what consoles it will be on, and how that is going to work with an inventory or interaction system, which is going to have been developed to as presumably be more flexible, because they're probably going to want to release this on as many platforms as possible. I could easily see something like this coming out for Switch, for Nintendo, because that's the kind of market where people play a lot of indie games. Home console, I would assume, on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, but I really don't know how that would work. But those consoles in some cases, as far as I know, very out of touch with the home console scene these days, but are moving towards, in some cases, actually having keyboard and mouse capability as well.
You know more about it than me. We were discussing
I don't know much.
We were discussing the other day the limitations that WiiWare placed on the development of Tales of Monkey Island in the character design.
Yeah.
Because the file sizes had to be kept so low. And I'm kind of thankful, because if you think now about... You think about at the time, 2009, and a game coming out not with that kind of 3D style, it would have been much more unusual. But we've kind of got to a point with the indie game scene. I'm not particularly across the indie game scene. I know you're much more into it, and you feed me a lot of information. I'm like a retro gamer and very much a LucasArts fan. But imagining thankfully now we've got to a point where a 3D game like that doesn't have to be. We can have these games in 2D and in these new kind of experimental graphical formats and things, which is lucky, and I think it's going to serve the game well. The fact that it doesn't have to be in kind of a 2000s 3D acceleration style.
And this might lead to a next point, as it looks like the new game is not going to be especially visually intensive. It doesn't have 3D graphics. I think that makes sense. I think that 3D graphics are not the best medium by which adventure games work. I've had better and worse experiences playing adventure games that use 3D engines. Honestly, the Frogwares Sherlock Holmes games are, in many cases, much more playable than Grim Fandango and Escape from Monkey Island are. Honestly, those are later games, admittedly, than Grim Fandango and Escape from Monkey Island, but
they're similar era to Tales, I believe.
That's true. And Tales used an hybrid system. I think probably, once again, it may have been a concession to WiiWare, I expect, where interaction was probably done by pointing with the Wiimote. I've never played Tales on Wii, so I wouldn't know. I only played it on PC. But yeah, I would imagine in this case, this is not going, I would think, to be a massively hardware intensive game, and that the control system that they implement is... I could easily see this having either more than one control scheme, or it has something that involves the use of a touchpad or can be easily translated to a thumbstick or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we haven't mentioned is the use on mobile phones and things like that.
Yeah,
that's the way things are going, and I think I know you have a friend who his first experience playing Secret of Monkey Island was a special edition on an iPad. I think.
Yeah.
And that's very far removed from how you and I.
Yeah, nothing like what it was like. Yeah, for someone to play that game in the early 90s when those. But I
think that really plays to its advantage as well. I'm glad that we've gotten to that point in time where technology has improved, but also expectations have changed where people are open to different ideas.
Do not mock the voodoo priestess.
that just brings me to another thing I wanted to discuss very briefly, perhaps, was that the team size is quite small.
Yeah,
25
which is
people
good to
max,
see.
they said.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's about 10 more people, I think, they said were involved with Thimbleweed at the time.
Yeah, they said that was about 15, 17 people, something like that at the most. And Secret of Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2 were very small teams as well. And you really don't want these blowing out into huge projects with tons and tons of visual artists and executive producers sticking their oar in about every idea.
If you look at I think there was a photo released recently of, there's an old photo of the team at the publication of The Secret of Monkey Island after they'd finished stuffing all the Dialer Pirate wheels in the boxes.
Yeah.
And the team's not that small, and you look at the credits for that game, and they go through all the publishers and the marketing and everything, kind of to bulk the credits out because the development team was so small. And I think that bodes well as well. And I think that kind of also ties into the fact that these games don't need 1,000 animators and all special effects and things like that.
Yeah, and it sounds like from what Ron Gilbert said that obviously there was no realistic way that he would actually ever own the Monkey Island intellectual property, but that Lucasfilm Games gave him license to basically do whatever he wanted with the game.
Yeah,
is what he said.
I kind of can't believe that. I remember when Disney bought all the Lucas stuff, and he just kind of thought, that's it for LucasArts and Monkey Island.
Yeah, that was in 2012, right? And my assumption was just, LucasArts products are dead, and we're never going to see another Monkey Island ever again, and this is it.
Well, that was the thing. When I got Escape running the other night on my Mac, I managed to download the patched exe file that you need from the Disney website. These old LucasArts files are hosted on the Disney website.
Supported, on Disney's own website, which is funny to see.
And Ron talks about, I think it's Ron talking about in one of those interviews on Adventure Gamers, I believe, that Monkey Island's really loved by the people involved in Lucasfilm now under Disney.
Many of whom probably grew up with it, given the ages, I'd imagine, of people who are working there these days.
So,
which is encouraging to see. Again, I hope it's true. I hope that's not just good public relations, and that they did genuinely give him free reign as much as possible, that they trusted him to do the project the way that he would want to. I mean, that's the thing that I'm really curious about, is what their expectations are. Apparently they got quite a generous budget for the game, bigger than the Thimbleweed Park Kickstarter
Well, that's
raised.
what I wondered about. And they also made the point that with the Kickstarter, you need to satisfy the people's expectations.
Yeah. Well, that's
whereas if there's a company paying for it, you can do what you want.
Yeah. Then there's the two different sides to getting that kind of funding, or having crowdfunding comes with different set of expectations depending on who's paying for it. I think from what I read that it sounded like they'd basically just said, here's this much money and you can develop the game. I'd be curious to know what kind of return on investment Lucasfilm was expecting from this, and that's probably, as I was saying to you the other day, why Devolver Digital is involved with the distribution, because they have a background in indie game development and publication, and probably the expectation is, I don't think Lucasfilm these days would know anything about the indie game or the adventure game market. And probably getting Devolver involved was in the hope that they could market and distribute the game in a way that was going to give them the kind of return to Monkey Island that they're after.
Well, I look at things like Grim Fandango. All three of Schafer's games have been remastered. Disney's given him the rights to do them, and I wonder if they kind of laid the groundwork for getting this off the ground. And I also wonder if this is successful, what it may lead to. That would be quite exciting. might finally get to see Full Throttle Hell on Wheels.
Yeah, I mean, there's been more than one attempt to make a sequel to Full Throttle. I'd be very curious to see if this resulted, if it was successful, the obvious thing that any business would think would be that they then needed to make another Monkey Island game, which is exactly what happened with Escape after the probably somewhat unexpected success of Curse. So, be curious to see what happens there.
You big old bedwetting duty head.
Okay, let's talk about one other thing before we move on and just taking a look at the screenshots. We know that Dominic Armato's coming back. We know that Alexandra Boyd's coming back in the role of Elaine. Apparently, Earl Bowen is not returning.
Yeah,
he's retired, but he's given his blessing to recast LeChuck.
Yeah, and I wasn't surprised by this at all. Earl Bowen was already technically recast in Chapter 1 of Tales of Monkey Island until he ended up returning for Chapter 5 and ended up re-recording the dialogue for Chapter 1 for the special release, the hard copy release of that game. So that, it doesn't surprise me that he didn't come back for this, given his age and the fact that he's been retired for a long time. I was honestly surprised that he came back for Tales and the special editions.
I think the role of LeChuck is quite a high energy role, doing all that. Think about suffering sailors, 'tis good to be dead, all that kind of thing. That's someone throwing themselves around in a vocal booth. And the other thing I was thinking about, as you know, I'm not a big fan of the special editions, and I played through them once. When I read LeChuck's dialogue in The Secret of Monkey Island and in LeChuck's Revenge, he doesn't sound like Earl Bowen. I love Earl Bowen in Curse, and to an extent in Escape, and I think he kind of fits that supervillain characterization of LeChuck very well. But I read LeChuck as being much more sinister, very different in those first two games. And I'm hoping that they can kind of capture that kind of voice with whatever the recasting is.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see what that's like. I mean, I've played the special editions more times than you have, and I actually think Earl Bowen did a pretty good job in the special editions, as you'd expect. I mean, he's a good actor.
Oh yeah.
And there are some lines that he sells particularly well. I think the biggest issue with the special editions, and we'll talk about this more in a separate installment, is the voice direction, not the voice acting. I think my favourite Earl Bowen line in the special editions, or Earl Bowen delivery, is the very end of Monkey Island 2, when Guybrush pulls off LeChuck's mask and he says, "My God, you're my creepy brother Chucky." And he goes, "What? Did you think I was kidding before?" and that bit, I think, that's just the one that always stands out in my head.
I think I'm much more thinking about Secret, where I kind of see LeChuck as this kind of very brooding character, almost speaking in a whisper in my head.
Yeah, I think in if you look at those games without voice acting, in Secret, LeChuck spends all this time brooding in his ship, and in Monkey Island 2, he's quite intimidating for the majority of it, and quite scary and threatening, and he's not bumbling or foolish like he was sometimes portrayed as being in Curse of Monkey Island and the later sequels to a certain extent.
Yeah, that's right. And
I think
fat. Apparently it was fat.
I think whoever they cast to play LeChuck will be fine. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm not that concerned about it. I'm not particularly concerned about anything. I just thought it was a point of interest. All right, do you want to have a quick look at the screenshots that they've provided us?
Yeah, what do you think of what we've seen so far?
I'm just looking now at what I think is a statue of a monkey holding a rock in its foot in what I assume is beneath the monkey head on Monkey Island because of the mushrooms.
Yeah,
I think this is the coolest screenshot.
the hell mushrooms, which suggest that that we are going to return to the caverns of meat.
Yes.
Beneath Monkey Island from The Secret of Monkey Island. It's definitely an interesting and intense visual. I mean, it just fires the imagination about what's going to happen in this new game.
Things. This reminds me of looking at screenshots of Chuck's Revenge in a magazine when I was a little boy and just thinking, wow, what's that going to be like?
Yeah.
We've also got a shot of what I assume, it looks exactly like it, is Melee Island.
Yeah, Melee Town with the jail, the church, which is now boarded up, presumably because LeChuck punched Guybrush through the ceiling at the end of Secret of Monkey Island, and the shopkeeper's shop, his general store, with someone, maybe the shopkeeper himself, peering out the window, and a door that you can't see in Secret of Monkey Island, which appears to lead to a locksmith's shop, which we've seen a separate screenshot for.
Yeah, I kind of like that idea that you were kind of seeing the other side of the street. That would have blown my mind as a 6-year-old kid.
Yeah.
You know when you play these games and you kind of think that there's more to it that you just can't access?
Yeah, you imagine what's hidden down that alley or behind that door or anything like that,
Now, go into your point about the boxes in front of the Shine Top alley.
Yeah, the alley between the shop and the church is full of boxes, and of course, the last time we saw that alley, at least in a Ron Gilbert, Dave Grossman written game, we'd popped out of a lift underneath Dinky Island to find ourselves in that alley. And I'm wondering, is that how we're going to get back onto Melee Island?
Yeah. Like, that's my
maybe
thoughts
maybe
not.
not.
Are we going to stumble out of that door? You made the point that is Guybrush going to climb over those boxes and then refuse later on to go back in there? Terrified.
Yeah. I'm curious about what's going to happen with these screenshots. I am a little bit concerned to what extent is this going to be a trip down memory lane about going back to Melee Island and going back to Monkey Island, because Escape from Monkey Island already did this.
Yes, I was going to make that point.
I really hope we see some stuff that's new and it's not just retreading and expanding upon places that we saw in Secret of Monkey Island. I mean, that could be fine if it's done in an interesting way.
Yes.
It just depends how it's done.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of when a sequel to a game used to come out and it was basically just a new level set.
Yeah.
You know, Doom 2 kind of thing. It's just Doom 1 with more levels. It's I hope we're not doing that. Like, I hope that the sequence on Melee Island is either short or just done well enough so that it's not.
Yeah, I really hope so. There was another screenshot which appears to be an office of a public official or something along those lines. Some people thinking it might be a judge or justice of the peace
very concept
in some
to
way.
Me.
Yeah. I'm wondering, is there some courthouse on Melee Island that we couldn't see in the game that might have been through a door or somewhere?
There are more keys featured in this as well.
Yeah.
This is giving me very strong Escape and Tales vibes for some reason. I think I'm thinking of going to visit the lawyers in Escape maybe, and then the trial and execution of Guybrush.
Yes, which is the courthouse on Flotsam Island. Yes.
It may not be that at all, but that's what it looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I think, as we were saying the other day, I do think that we don't know what it's actually going to look like, but I feel like there's a very lonely air to Melee Island in this new game. And I'm almost wondering, as Melee Island, are we going to see that has it been partly abandoned? Have people left Melee Island? Are we going to find that, is it being rebuilt or refurbished as part of the slightly unreal nature of the Monkey Island world. Perhaps.
Perhaps Guybrush isn't the only pirate experiencing this fantasy dual identity kind of idea.
And what does this have to do with the fact that the ghost ship is apparently moored in the harbour of Melee Town as well? Is it possible, have the ghosts scared everyone away, or are the ghosts coming there because it's a bit safer for them because there's hardly anyone around anymore?
Yeah. The new haven for ghosts.
Yeah.
While it used to be kind of, they were all too scared to leave Melee.
Yeah. Now maybe everyone's run away.
Or perhaps they've all just been affected by the crippling powers of the ultimate insult.
Yeah. we know that the lookout from Melee Island in Secret of Monkey Island appears as well. Same voice actor from the special edition too of Secret, and so there's definitely going to be some going over of things that happened in the original game. I just really hope that it's does something interesting with it, and that I really don't want to stay there too long. What I would love with that shot of the caverns of meat, the hell tunnels full of mushrooms, I would love for that to be part of the way by which you escape the amusement park and get back to Melee Island.
That would be cool.
And that you don't go into the monkey head later in the game, that you never go back to Monkey Island. Yeah. As I said in our first episode, I don't want Guybrush to go back to Monkey Island.
No. I like that idea. The last screenshot we have is of what looks like the interior of the key shop, the locksmith.
Yeah, the locksmith shop.
Yeah. Looks pretty. There's not much to comment on there. There are lots of different keys. There's a book. I can't make out what it says. I've tried to zoom in. I can't read it. There's a character model there. Looks nice. Picture on the wall. Yeah. Just a little taster.
And in the judge's office looking room, there is a portrait of someone with keys on a hat or crown on his head.
Yeah, that's what
I'm guessing there's going to be some kind of puzzle involving finding or cutting a correct key. But
yes, well, the puzzles are one
just a
thing
guess.
Really touched on yet.
Yeah.
Not much to say.
Yeah, we don't know much at this stage.
This is a little prediction from me. When we meet the lookout, I think we're going to see the alternate view of the lookout tower that came out in that article a few years ago about the alternate and missing art from Secret. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Refresh my memory.
I think the original shot of the lookout tower in the EGA version that was redone was the lookout was looking kind of away from the camera.
Oh, yeah. It's sort of behind the lookout, right? Looking out over the ocean, isn't it?
Yeah.
That would be interesting to see.
Yes.
Do we want to talk about the art at all?
I was hesitant to comment on this because this has been, you and I are part of.
Yeah.
We keep up with various groups and things that discuss this stuff ad nauseum. People don't like the art. Actually, this isn't true. Someone ran a poll and said, who really, what are your actual opinions on the art? This is on Facebook, I think it was earlier today. And the majority of people said, it looks good to me.
Yeah.
But there have been a few vocal devotees who have said that, we want pixel art, whatever that is. And Ron's commented that kind of talk's actually made him a bit sad. It's a shame.
Yeah, I really don't have an issue with the art style. It's again, it would be great if it did have pixel art, but my main concern is that the game, as I said before, is weird and funny and has good puzzles.
Yeah, I want a good game. I'm not that concerned about the artwork.
We can't judge based on a few screenshots as well. And I think the art, if the art style is what it's like in the announcement video, I liked it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to judge based on a few screenshots or draw any conclusions based on what I've seen.
No. And I think you and I probably would agree that we would have liked a game that looked like it came out in 1994, like with the crunch down art. My preference was always to do kind of, though Monkey Island 2, for example, they were painted backgrounds that I believe were scanned and then crunched down, which made them pixelated. Yeah. My preference would be to have hand-painted backgrounds in that style and character sprites in that style that were just scanned and not necessarily crunched down into pixels. But I'll take it. I'm not going to be an apologist about it, but I am happy with where it's going.
I think that covers everything that's come out, and we'll talk about this more if anything else comes out between now. We don't even know the release date yet, but again, in the meantime, we've got lots of stuff.
Yes,
that we want to talk about, particularly now that the ending of Monkey Island 2 is going to be the immediate setup for this new game. There's a lot I want to talk about there.
Yeah, that's really put a new spin on my thinking about that whole game and the way I've thought about it for the last, 30 years?
30 years, yeah. really want to talk about that. So, yeah, there's plenty more to come. Yeah.
We'll talk about next, yeah. Right, well, thank you for listening to Rubber Chicken with the podcast in the middle, the only podcast that asks the question, what's sharper, your sword or your wit? I've been Gordon.
I'm Alistair.
And...
Look behind you! A three-headed monkey!